Hello there. On today's video, I want to try to explain why it seems like not most, but lots of JavaScript developers, they are a junior forever. Now, I'm going to use myself as an example here. So I'm exposing myself. Check this out. This is a brief overview of my career as a front-end developer. Now I'm working as a full stack, thank God, but an overview of my past years of experience is, first of all, I worked with the React single page app. I learned about class-based components, global state management, I learned about Redux, MobX, I think I used Zustand as well. Back then, hooks were starting to become a new thing, so I learned about hooks, useState, whatever. Then, on my next experience, I started using Next.js. On Next.js, I was exposed to get server-side props, get static props, incremental static, revalidation. So I was exposed to static site generation. I learned how to do server-side rendering, how to render on the client side, how to statically render a website, and then revalidate that every X amount of seconds or minutes or hours. Then I moved on and I started working with Hydrogen V1. Now, if you don't know what Hydrogen is, it's a framework that was created by Shopify to work as a headless storefront. Then on Hydrogen V1, I worked with an early implementation of React server components. Instead of use client and use server on top of the file, we used .client and .server extensions on the file name. Then I learned about Remix, and on Remix I had to learn about actions, loaders, which is a different way of doing data fetching in React. I learned about some crazy hooks like useFetcher. And then finally I started using Next.js once again. Then this time I had to learn a new router called App Router. I had to learn about unstable cache, server actions, and now we even have like a keyword use cache for caching on Next.js. Now take a look at this, right? Out of all of these topics, which one do you consider deep, long-lasting, and reusable knowledge? Pause the video. Which one do you consider that? On my humble opinion, it's 0%. All of this is shallow knowledge. 100% of these topics, they are APIs that are tied to a framework. I cannot reuse any of that knowledge. Now, back then, if you asked me to work on Ruby on Rails or something on the back end, or maybe even Vanilla.js, I wasn't able to, because I spent so much time learning and relearning new frameworks after framework after framework, and this is very common. Like, maybe you started your front-end developer career as a React developer, then you got hired to write Svelte, so you had to learn Svelte. Then you got hired to learn Remix or to use Next.js version 15, and then you keep learning and relearning the same topics over and over again. And none of this knowledge is reusable. None. Now, if you learn vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, of course, this knowledge is reusable. But everything that I just listed here is not. I cannot bring that knowledge with me. And some developers, they never go beyond that. They get a job, they learn a framework for that job, and that's it. Then they switch jobs, they learn a new framework, they use that framework on that company, and that's it. They never go beyond that. They never question what's going on under their hood. And the only time that they spend learning, it's learning shallow knowledge. So this is why it feels like you can get like a Next.js developer that has 10 years of experience writing JavaScript, writing Ember.js, Gatsby, Next, Remix, Hydrogen. It doesn't matter. If he only studied those frameworks and nothing besides that, he will always be a junior. Now, I have one story time as an example. I was working on a project for a different job that I had. And there was one experienced front-end developer from another team, and he sent me a message saying, "Hey, do you mind if we do a quick call and I can ask you some questions?" And I was like, "Sure, go ahead." So we scheduled a meeting, and he was experienced, okay? I think he had 5 years of professional experience. On that call, listen to this. He asked me, "Hey, Daniel, which framework do you recommend to do authentication on the front end?" So I asked him, "Wait a moment. You're working with Next.js on the front end, right?" "Yeah." "You have a separate backend team working, I think it was Nest.js on the backend, but they had another separate team building a REST API." So I was like, "So you have a REST API, right?" "Yeah." "Don't you have like a login route or something where you pass the email, password, and then you receive a token back?" "Yeah." So I was like, "That's it. What do you mean you need a framework? You have a separate team of backend developers who already did all the work. All you have to do on the front end is do a freaking fetch call. And then you grab that token, save somewhere, like local storage, and then on the other subsequent requests, you send that token." This is deep knowledge, understanding how a token authentication works on the front end and on the back end as well. This is deep knowledge. You can reuse this knowledge on any framework, any front-end framework, any back-end framework. But he didn't have that knowledge. So he was like, "Okay, this looks like a lot of work. Can you recommend me a framework?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm done. How the hell did you even manage to pass the interview to work on this company?" I was shocked. Like, you have a REST endpoint that you can do a fetch call. What do you mean you need a framework? I got mad. So then I realized, oh, these guys, they are so used to installing a new package, a new framework, and they just learn the framework. They never go beyond that. So here I have a quick fix for this problem. I mean, not a quick fix. This is gonna hurt a little bit. The fix is, I have a couple of suggestions. For example, try to implement useState in Vanilla.js. Try to implement the image component from Next.js using just HTML. How did they manage to create such a performant image component? Like, under the hood, it's just the image tag from HTML. So what's going on there? Study the cache control header, because this way you will learn how to do caching on any framework. This is deep knowledge, deep reusable knowledge that you're going to stick with it for the rest of your life, because this is how the web works. The cache control header is not specific to Next.js, it is specific to the web, and you can reuse that. And try to ask yourself, okay, how do I do this without the framework? This way you learn more about vanilla JavaScript. And most important of all, just stop wasting time learning frameworks. So if you are a Next.js developer and you got hired to work with Svelte or SvelteKit, for example, learn just enough to be productive, okay? Are you able to execute your job without looking at the docs all the time? Then fine. Stop there. Stop. Okay, you are from now on prohibited to keep studying frameworks. From now on, every extra minute that you have left and you want to study, you're going to study vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And once you are finished with that, you go study backend. Okay, go study SQL, go study the MVC architecture. This is long-lasting knowledge. You're going to live with this knowledge forever. This is not tied to a specific framework. There are multiple frameworks that use the MVC architecture. It's very important. Once you learn SQL, you're going to reuse that no matter the framework. And not only that, but no one is hiring just front-end developers now. They are hiring full stack. So learn just enough to execute your job and stop. Go learn something deeper and just move on from the frameworks. All right? Sorry for the rant. Feel free to drop a comment below saying how much you agree or disagree with me. I try to answer every single comment, so feel free to add a comment below. Thank you. See you next time.